Newborn mammals are entirely dependent on their moms. Baby koalas and howler monkeys hold on for dear life, while mom gives them everything they need. But soon enough, mom, and sometimes dad, passes on the skills their offspring need to survive on their own. It's cozy here, and this baby clearly likes this spot. Who wouldn't? This is Reg. He's a 7-month-old koala, wrapped in his mother's arms, living the good life at Caversham Wildlife Park in Perth, Australia. Reg leads a life that's a bit out of the ordinary. Koalas are known to be solitary and temperamental as adults in the wild, but in the zoo, these animals are a tight-knit clan, joined at the hip.
They're very clingy, they share mums sometimes, they interact by playing in the trees together. Sometimes you'll see 2 or 3 young joeys on the one mother, while the other ones are off grooming.
Koalas are often referred to as koala bears. We can thank 18th century settlers in Australia for that. They were struck by the koala's bear-like appearance. It was an honest mistake. But they're actually marsupials, with the trademark pouches to carry their young. Joeys are very attached to their mums. Reg is at the age where he's just starting to explore. Like other koalas, he'll live his life in eucalyptus trees.
He's pretty outgoing at the moment. He's just learning to climb and be independent slowly of his mother. He'll still be with his mother for another 3 to 4 months until he actually ventures off full-time from her.
For the time being, Reg is still mostly nursing on his mother's milk for nourishment. He'll continue to nurse until he's about a year old. But he has also started to eat eucalyptus leaves. The leaves are the mainstay of the koala diet, even though they're highly toxic. How do koalas eat them without being poisoned? It's because koalas have a long gut with special bacteria that can metabolize the toxins. As adults, koalas can eat up to 1 kilogram of leaves a day. That's impressive compared to their body weight, which can be anywhere between 7 and 11 kilograms. Digesting all those leaves takes energy, so koalas are slow-moving and sedentary, sleeping up to 22 hours a day. To prepare for a full-time eucalyptus diet, Reg will have to eat a special form of his mom's poop. It's called pap. When Reg makes the switch from milk to leaves, the pap will give him the special gut bacteria needed to digest tough eucalyptus leaves. Now that is an interesting rite of passage. If Reg were in the wild, he'd learn to fend for himself in a few months' time.
The joey would actually leave the mother at 12 months and probably never see her again, especially if they're a young male. They get sent away from the group. It's a life of a solitary koala. They would have to face the possibility, if they're a male, of extending their food range to find their own location where other males are not going to pick on them. And as a female, finding a group of koalas that would accept her into the area that they could share.
In the wild, young koalas have some important steps to take before they're ready to venture out on their own.
So they'd have to be totally weaned. They'd have to locate different species of their food trees, and then they have to cross from tree to tree on the ground. So they have to learn the survival skills of when to do it, from protection from other animals.
For now, Reg and his mates at the zoo are getting stronger.
The joeys have learned already wonderful climbing skills. They've built their forearm muscles, their leg muscles. They've learned their balance and stance, and that's already a very strong climbing animal.
Eat, sleep, practice a little climbing, and repeat. with plenty of cuddle time with Mom.
The cutest thing that the joeys do, I would say, is snuggle. If ever a keeper comes into an enclosure, they love to get on you, have a little climb and a snuggle. It's so cute.
It's summer in the Scottish Highlands, and nature is in full bloom. The grass and heather aren't the only things having a growth spurt. Animals too, including some that haven't been seen in these parts for thousands of years. Now that they're here, it's hard to miss them. The antlers are a bit of a giveaway. Moose are back in the British Isles, where they're known as European elk.
In the UK, there's only 6 places that actually have European elk. Back in 2009, we had the first calf born in the British Isles in nearly 1,000 years.
It's a comeback tale. And you're looking at the newest chapter. Twins, born at the Highland Wildlife Park near Aviemore, Scotland. The species, which once roamed the forest here, has been extinct in the British Isles since about 900 AD. But they're still found in Scandinavia and northern Russia. European elk were brought back to the UK in 2007. So far, they've settled in well at the park. The birth of twins doubled the park's population in one fell swoop. This is Dad, Bob, and this is Cass, their mother. Formerly the only 2 European elk in the preserve. Moose calves are heavily dependent on their mother for the first year of their life. In fact, these 2 are most often by Cass's side.
The female's called Siri and the wee male's called Ari. They're really confident. They follow Mum and Dad all around the enclosure.
Ari is relatively wee compared to Siri. He was born small but healthy. Now he's starting to gain on his sister. The calves sport orange fur. That will change as they grow older and as the weather turns cold. For now, they're enjoying summer and an endless supply of leaves delivered to their feet. Moose are browsers, and the park provides them with a steady diet of willow, rowan, and birch, with side orders of heather and, in winter, pine needles. As babies, the most important part of their diet is Mum's milk. But they don't have long to enjoy it. Cass will be weaning them by summer's end. They're growing by leaps and bounds. And boy, can they bound! In their first week of life, baby moose can outrun humans. Right now, they're usually making a beeline for Mum.
She's very good, she's very attentive. She knows where the safe places are to take the calves away from the public eye if she wants them to go off show for a bit.
Dad keeps an eye on his family. At 8 years of age, Bob is mature in every sense. It's a tight family unit for the time being.
He's very kind to the females. He doesn't chase them, he's not too bossy. So the calves are not only learning from Mum, but they're also learning from Dad as they're developing.
Whatever they're doing and wherever they are, this family communicates well, with body language and with vocals.
It's a lot of little noises that are reassuring noises, but they're also move over, you're in my space, eating my food noises, and they're kind of like, those sort of noises.
In the wild, food is just one thing these calves would have to compete for. A good mate would be another. That's where antlers come in. All Ari has right now are 2 little bumps. They'll stay small for the first year. As he develops, he'll look more like his dad. First, he'll grow some facial hair. This beard is called a bell. And then he'll start growing his proper antlers. And, like all male moose, he'll have to grow a full set every year.
At the beginning of the year, the stags will have these amazing set of antlers. Around about March time, they'll cast them, and it's almost like a little bit like having a wobbly tooth. They'll be wobbly one day, and then they'll just fall off one day, and it doesn't hurt them.
Then they start growing new antlers, sprouting an inch each day. That requires a phenomenal amount of energy. The soft fur on these antlers is where that energy comes from. It's called velvet, and it supplies blood to keep antlers growing. Every August, that blood supply is cut off, the velvet dries up, and the antlers become hard, ready to fight with.
It's all about having the best antlers, being the strongest bull you can to win the best girls and to win as many girls as what you can.
Several months have passed. Bob's mating is done for the season. Cold weather has set in. He's standing by his family.
In the wild now, the male wouldn't be with them, he would be off, but at the minute he's still quite happy to be around the female and the youngsters, and they'll get on very well.
The calves are 6 months older and bolder. They've had a good summer fattening up and have shed their orange fur.
And then coming into the winter, it'll go into sort of a dark brown, a few flecks of grey through it as well. But they've both put the sort of the weight on, the nice bulk to keep them warm during our winters up here.
By next summer, Siri and Ari will be moving to other reserves throughout the UK, so they have just a few months to learn as much as they can from Mum.
They'll be watching her where she goes for the best food and which food is going to be better for them, where the streams are for her to drink from. They'll still be picking up a lot from her until they leave the park and go on to new homes.
They're still young, but Siri and Ari will play a role in restoring the European elk population to their ancient stomping grounds. In the animal world, Asian small-clawed otters could be poster animals for the saying, all for one and one for all. Sticking together. That's the secret of their survival. These pint-sized otters are the smallest of the 13 species of otters found around the world. And when they're born, they are absolutely minuscule. 3 months ago at the Dudley Zoo near Birmingham, England, Mother Otter Kia and Father Buddy had a litter of 4 pups. At that time, the tiny blind pups weighed only 50 grams each. Now they're big enough to survey their territory with Mum and Dad. Kia and Buddy already have the foundation for strong family ties.
They'll stay together forever. They'll produce roughly about 2 litters every single year, so it's quite a lot of offspring that she produce. As their offspring are growing up, they'll stay with them, so they stay as a big family unit.
These babies will be ready to have pups of their own by the time they're 2 or 3. Until that time, Mum keeps the pups in line.
The mother is very, very protective of her babies. She'll attack anything that comes near them, to the point where they're a bit overprotective.
Kia is definitely watchful, but she can also be pretty friendly.
They do a lot of kissing. They'll groom each other for bonding. They'll share food.
Well, they'll share most of the time.
On some occasions, you may see mother otters or an adult parent take a fish from a baby, and just because they're teaching it a lesson that it needs to work for its own food.
Not sharing offers a bit of a reality check.
It's not always going to be provided, because if the babies think the adult's going to bring us the food, they're never going to start foraging, they're never going to start to learn.
Meals at the zoo are scattered everywhere to encourage foraging. Today's meal is fish and is hidden where else?
We put a lot of it in the water, encourage them to go into the water, because in the wild, that's where they find a lot of their food.
Those short claws help them find and hold on to a good meal.
They get that name because of their nails. They don't actually protrude further than their toes. This gives them dexterity, and they're able to feel for their food, such as mollusks and crustaceans.
Although they spend more time on land than any other otter species, these little ones are ideally suited to an aquatic life.
Otters are perfectly adapted for water life, from their eyes to their tails. And when they're swimming, they're actually using their legs, their feet, and almost doing like a doggy paddle. Their hands are actually webbed.
Kia and her family like to cement their family bond in many ways, as do all Asian small-clawed otters.
Otters communicate a lot of time with different types of vocalisations, roughly 12 to 13, which they're doing through their mouths. It sounds a lot like high-pitched squeals at different tones.
Each call has a distinct meaning. Anything from alarm to distress to a friendly hello. But they don't just rely on sound. They rely on smell as well. And the family that smells together stays together.
They'll actually scent mark a lot of stuff. They've got a special gland on the underside of their tail. So when they're excreting faeces and fecal matter, which is called spraint, they'll actually attach this scent to their poo. They'll all produce the same scent, and if any intruders were coming in and scenting, they'll all know that that was the intruder.
Talk about closing ranks on outsiders. They have other defense strategies too. In their native habitat in Asia, they prefer the protection of mangroves, swamps, and murky waterways. Otter families hide away in dens known as holts. They're often found along muddy riverbanks. And life in the zoo doesn't dampen that instinct.
Otters will naturally use these as protection and areas to sleep in. They're often found underground, and they'll take nest materials such as plants. That's where they're safe from predators, and that's where they'll rear litters, keep their babies, and most of the time, that's where they keep safe.
Whether it's a burrow underground in the wild or a little wooden house at the zoo, at the end of the day, there's no place like home. The residents of the Santa Ana Zoo in Santa Ana, California, are used to this sound. It's not an alarm clock, although it can be pretty alarming if you don't know what it is. It's the sound of a troop of black howler monkeys doing what comes naturally. This is Greta, one of several howlers that live here. She has a 6-week-old baby, but it's very hard to spot. Like most primates at that age, it's stuck to mum 24/7. So the zoo hasn't been able to get close enough to find out if it's a boy or a girl.
Initially, they're clutched onto mom all the time, and they ride on mom, and then as they get older, they start exploring, and slowly they start extending the distance from mom.
If a newborn weren't enough to manage, Greta also has a 2-year-old son, Blake. And she has a 10-month-old daughter, Charlie. These siblings keep the troop occupied. And heading up this troop is Thaddeus. He's the only black howler monkey in this troop who's actually black. The females and youngsters of the species are golden brown. Even howlers that don't share the same mother get along, so it's become a family affair.
This troop of howler monkeys in our zoo are very, very close-knit. The dad has 2 wives, so to speak, and all the little kids, and they all get along, they all hang around with each other all the time. And there's obviously a dominance and discipline that occurs between all the adults and then between the siblings, the young siblings and the older siblings. But it's just like one big happy family.
The slow pace of life is similar in the zoo as it would be in the wild for black howler monkeys. 13 species of howlers live in the forests of Central and South America. Black howlers live in groups of 5 to 20 monkeys. The key difference is that these monkeys are endangered in the wild and safe here. In the wild, adolescent males and females eventually leave or get kicked out of their troops and join new ones. For Blake and Charlie, that means moving to another zoo. But for now, they're happy playing and spending time with this bunch. Charlie's tail helps her antics. She's a natural-born swinger, as are all howlers. These tails are prehensile, and it means they can use them like another arm. They're very sensitive and strong. handy for carrying things, for balance, or just hanging around. They can be as long as a monkey's body, so when Charlie grows to full size, that will be about 1 meter of body and another meter of tail. Charlie and Blake certainly seem to have monkeying about figured out.
They've definitely shown normal behaviors of monkeys climbing around trees and playing and getting into trouble like normal little kids do.
Although they're still learning.
They're just not as skilled, so they don't tend to jump as far and do as many of the gymnastics that you see the adults do.
The monkeys are skilled at finding food. Although howlers are mostly leaf eaters in the wild, the zoo gives them foods like kale and other vegetables. Mama digs for the good stuff, sweet carrots at the bottom of the bin. When Charlie's not monkeying around, she's taking it easy. Howler monkeys can spend as much as 80% of their day resting. That's because their bodies are designed to eat leaves, which have little nutrition, and digesting them takes a lot of energy. So, even though Charlie and her troop get other foods at the zoo, she's just doing what she was meant to do. Even she needs to rest occasionally. And what about that howling? Howler monkeys are the loudest land animal in the world. That sound can carry for almost 5 kilometers.
Howler monkeys can project their voice. They actually have pouches and very large larynx. Their lower part of their neck inflates, and they can resonate the sounds in there and then project them.
In the wild, the howling happens early in the morning and at night. It's how the monkeys stake out territory and warn competitors. But in the zoo, Charlie's family doesn't have any rival neighbors, so the calls happen a little less frequently. And while the howls sound sad or angry, this tight-knit family is thriving. That's great news for an animal that's endangered in the wild. Mammal mums and dads want to give their babies a good start in life. But parents can only do so much. Eventually, their offspring learn what it takes to fend for themselves and make their own way.